Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast this evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. I'm happy to see you again after a break of the 2 weeks or so.
Yes, a week, sir. A very eventful week. But before I go there, I'd want to say to those who had joined early, thank you for joining very early. Some people from the US had joined earlier on, thinking that we were starting a little bit earlier than normal. The time is always 7 p.m. Nigeria time. So wherever you are in the world, please pick the timing from that. Obviously, we're in that season where times are changing. And even though the studio here is in the UK, we follow Nigerian time. So wherever you are in the world, please just pick your timing from whatever time it is in Nigeria. But thank you very much for those who joined very early for the broadcast. And some people I also hear, sir, joined last week who maybe missed the notification about the suspension of the meeting last week. So let me go, sir. Monday was a very eventful day with a lot that happened, and that's the inauguration of the Academy of International Affairs. And I have had so many people ask me so many questions afterwards. Someone has said, oh, is this the same as the NIIA? What's the difference? Is it a student type organization? What type of organization is the Academy of International Affairs? So I thought to start this evening on that note, firstly, to congratulate you, sir, on such a very successful inauguration ceremony with some of the very distinguished people that were at the event. But let me stop there and just hear directly from you, sir. Hope you've rested since the event.
I've tried. I've tried. Thank you very much for your very positive comments. And let me join you in apologizing to those who didn't get the notice about postponement of last week, so that we can prepare for the academy. Also, I mean, the world is a village, and as they say, ask not for whom the bell tolls. You know, it tolls for all of us.
Bless you, sir. Do you want to take a drink, sir?
Yes. Yes, ask not for who the bell tolls. It tolls for all of us. So for our colleagues who live in the Baltimore area, let me extend our sympathy to them and hope there's no member of their family that was involved in the tragedy of the collapsing bridge. Even if there isn't, we are all one humanity. I also would like to, I'm sure there are members on this panel who have had an encounter with cancer, either on a family basis, immediate family basis, or extended family basis. So we will also, extend our sympathy to the royal family in Britain, not because they are royal family, but because they are human beings, and hope that again they will get that days. Let me first of all say what the academy is not. The academy is not a challenge to the Institute of International Affairs or a challenge to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I left the Institute of International Affairs in 1984. So if I want to set up an institution that will challenge the Institute, I wouldn't wait, is it 30 years or so before setting it up. And if I wanted to set up an institution that will compete with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which I left in 1987, again, I wouldn't wait till 40 years before doing so. So my motive and the motive of those of our colleagues who are fellows of the academy are totally pure. Has nothing to do with being a challenge to anybody. Those of you who live in the Western world, United States, Britain, France, will be familiar with Council on Foreign Relations, Chatham House, Institute of Royal Institute of military affairs. In the case of France, you have the academy, but they use that term. I don't even think they add an adjective to it. It's simply the academy or the French academy. and I'm sure in other places in Germany, um, in China, they all have this. You see, every country has a cut-off age limit, where those who have been actively involved in, foreign affairs, uh, who have been actively involved in foreign affairs, will retire from active service. And in most countries, is 70 years old. Now, and that is the case of us in Nigeria. Now, 70 years was a date that was set when the colonial officers were here who could not suffer the hot weather or suffer malaria for too long. And so you have this early cutoff stage when they could go home and young ones would take over. The same thing when we didn't have computer, internet. And so you constantly had to use to engage the brain physically. Now, surely the time had come when we know that 70 years old is too young for scholars, diplomats, even military officers to retire. The brain is still working. The brain is still actively engaged. Now, of course, one cannot change one cannot change the cutoff time limit immediately or actively. But at the same time, you don't want the brain to just be kicking away idly. The brain is still actively engaged. And so we thought those of us who are not too old, who can still make our age and our brain available to the use of the country. We can look for a scheme by which we will put ourselves together and make this available to the country. And that's all. We are not policymakers, but we are thinkers. Thinkers who would make ourselves available in terms of ideas. Issues come up all the time. Foreign policy issues come up all the time. These issues don't wait for you. They catch you unawares. You go to bed one night thinking the world is at peace, and you wake up in the morning and the world is not at peace. Yes, there are those who are paid in the ministries to be engaged, but you also have an active brain that you could engage, and whatever it is you come out of will be made available to the government. They could accept, they could reject, but you have done your best. In fact, a good illustration would be in the universities. There are colleagues who retire at the age of 70 in the university, in the government universities, and then go to the private universities to continue for another 5, 7, 8 years to teach and make their knowledge available to the young ones who are students at the university. And they continue to do this while in the government establishment, they will have been forced to retire. So this is really what the academy is all about. We want to continue to engage our brain, and we want that brain to continue to be at the disposal of our country and our continent.
Just to be clear, sir, and to make sure that maybe some people don't misunderstand your point, sir. What you are not advocating is that there is an extension of the retirement age beyond 70 while in the public service. What you are advocating is that the mind is still active after retirement, and that those minds could still be of use if they are brought together in a body or a coherent manner. Is that correct, sir?
No, it is both. I would love to see the retirement age extended without calling us back into service. I would like to see the retirement age extended. But it's too late for those who have already retired. So I would like those who have already retired, we've set up a forum that we will continue to be engaged in the thinking process.
So let me ask this one question before we move on from this point, because I think that some of us younger ones coming up may look at the first part of that question, which is yes, maybe extend beyond 70, and think that, well, if the older people don't want to live, then what happens to the younger ones who are coming up? Where do they go from here? What would you say to that kind of thought, sir?
Stop being selfish, because your own time, your own 70 years old or your own 75 will also come. And even though even though you may think, oh, now we've been cut off and they're not giving us, our time and so on. Let us stop thinking of our time. There are judges, Supreme Court judges, Court of Appeal judges who, as far as I'm concerned, their brain are still ticking. Why should you retire them? Why? Why should we, why should we be thinking our own time is being curtailed? It isn't being curtailed. there is a time you will get to be 70, and then you will still be there until you are 75. I mean, after there was a time in the university, I think the retirement age was 65, and then government extended it to 70. There was a time the Supreme Court was 65, and government extended it to 70. We should stop thinking about this. It's got to be my turn. And any extension is going to be to my own disadvantage.
All right. I know that in the past we've talked about this issue somewhat differently, and I think they are different. But it was about term limits and why it was important that people who are appointed into positions have enough time to actually do what they need to do, which then raises an interesting question, sir, when we look at Senegal. And we look at the fact that in Senegal, we now have, for the first time, I think, in Africa, a president that is under 45. I know he will probably be hitting the 45 just as they are getting appointed formally and installed into office. But is experience going to be a problem for Senegal?
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at all. I think the youngest president we've had in the United States was in his, I believe, in his 30s, and that's again John F. Kennedy. In Nigeria, we've had the head of state who assumed office at the age of 32. Now, I was Director General of the Institute of International Affairs at the age of 33, I believe, and I became a minister at the age of 40-something. Now, I don't think that the posts that I have occupied suffered from my being so young. And I don't think that Nigeria suffered from General Yakubu Gowon being 32. So I don't believe Senegal will suffer. Now, that is not to say that there will not be occasions when lack of experience will not manifest itself. However, we are also, on the other hand, having this debate between Biden and Putin. As regards, on the other hand, they have been too old. And let us not forget, what's the name of the president who was an actor? Reagan. Reagan was, one of the oldest that ever occupied that post at that time. So really, the pendulum will swing. You will have those who, because of their age, will be too old, and the country will suffer for it. And you will have those who will be too young, and the country will suffer for it. On the other hand, you will have those who are very young and have visions about how their country should go. Kennedy had a vision. And up till now, I don't think that we've had any American president who had the kind of vision that John F. Kennedy had. Now, I'm not saying that Obama didn't have a vision or that Clinton didn't have a vision. Of course they did. But if you throw your mind back to the time Kennedy became president, you will have to concede that his vision drove his country forward. I've also heard people say that, in fact, the best president that America ever had is Abraham Lincoln, who did not even go to the university. And yet, he was able to pilot the United States through those terrible days of the anti-slavery Civil War. So we will always have swings, and hopefully, on one hand, there'll be benefits, and on the other hand, there will be, not too good yet.
Let me ask the question slightly differently. When you look at what's happened now, I can see that hand. I'll call you in a minute. When you look at what has happened right now in Senegal, and the fact that now it's a democratically elected president that we're going to have in that country, and you look at the Francophone background of Senegal and consider Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso that are now controlled by the military, how would this impact the relationship between Senegal and those other countries that are ruled by the military? Is it going to speed up the move to democracy in those other countries? Or what kind of relationship do you see between Senegal and the other Francophone countries?
Well, first of all, I think that ECOWAS should thank Senegal for being rescued from almost being on the edge of the principle. Because if Senegal had gone the way it was going, the way the outgoing president was pushing it, it would have been a disaster for Senegal. I mean, for ECOWAS. And now that you have a young man, democratically elected, and who shared and embraced the democratic views, the colonial, who shared the colonial views of the young colonels or captains in those other countries. I believe that I believe that people in those countries will now will realize that you can get rid of neocolonialism through democratic avenue rather than just through the military. Because up until now, we were thinking it's not going just to, it's just the military, thruMYeyes coups that you could get rid of France. But if you listen to the speech of the incoming young Senegalese president, that speech could have been written for him by Mali or Burkina Faso, or won't just believe the time had come, and I'm so happy that it is through democratic means that that Africa is embarking on new freedom.
So I can see a hand raised, sir. Ambassador Leo, can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Thank you very much. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can, sir. Go ahead, sir.
I want to congratulate the president of the academy, former foreign minister, Professor Akinyemi, for the legacy has laid, a legacy that will endure for the future. He has created a legacy that has brought together great men and women that will exchange ideas and critical thinking for the benefit of Nigeria and ECOWAS and Africa, and in fact, the world. Now, coming to the question regarding either one was too young or not, relating it to the young man in Senegal now, I think the young man, like the professor had already said, which I was on my mind, he took it out of me, is that if the young man has great vision for his country and is determined to listen to those who are older and more experienced, he will be able to, I believe, he will be able to go a long way in succeeding in his presidency, as long as he's transparent and is very accountable, so that the aspirations of the people and the interest they have in him will be sustained. As for Senegal and those three, what I call the rogue states of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, I think the president of ECOWAS, our president Tinubu, can utilize the young man who seem to have the vision of trying to make sure that their colonial master, as it were, does not continue to, like someone said, put his knees on the necks of the French-speaking African countries. He has that type of ideas which the other three have as far as France is concerned. So it could be used because it will have a demonstration effect on these three other countries. And he could be advised or requested to try and speak to his younger brothers, or I don't know whether they are older than him, the other three rogue states, to try and emulate his good example, so that those military regimes can hopefully give us a timetable by which they can return to democracy, so that their country can have access to democratic principles of the world, and they may be helped more than what they're facing at the moment. This is my ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Please, before Ambassador Leo leaves the scene, I like him. I know I'm not the one who's supposed to pose questions, but I can't resist the temptation. Last week, Putin made telephone calls to the president of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, talking about security concerns. In the case of Burkina Faso, talking about what is this? You know this film about Oppenheimer.
The atomic bomb, is that the one?
Thank you. About an atomic the cooperation between Russia and Burkina Faso. To me, it looks like we've calibrated the relationship beyond one. Before, we used to talk about Wagner as the cover, but now it's like the cover is removed, and Putin is now the elephant in the room, has become, outright outright factor. And I just wonder how dangerous Ambassador Liu thinks about the development last week.
Yes, sir. I believe that Putin, just like the United States that has over 70 strategic military posts all over the world, I think Putin is looking for avenues to extend beyond the old Soviet Union, for which he still has some level of influence. Just as he is doing in Central African Republic, he wants to extend that to West Africa. And I don't know how much Central African Republic has gained from the relationship with Putin in terms of their own socio-economic development. It is too close to Nigeria, Burkina Faso, because it's just on the top of Ghana and Togo, and also Benin Republic. So we have to make sure that Nigeria is looking at it very critically, and by which we want to ensure that our relationship with Russia is so cordial to the extent that we can hopefully dissuade Russia from trying to establish any nuclear or big power hegemony in Burkina Faso, trying to replace France. So I think that the attempt Russia is making is to try and replace France and be doing some patrilineal type of relationship, that they are a great nation that can help them out better than what France has done. And consequently, it may pose a big problem for ECOWAS and for us, but the best thing is to ensure that we don't antagonize Russia. And we hopefully, with the new Senegalese guy who I've suggested could be used to convince the Sahelian 3 rogue states to come back to ECOWAS, we may have to work hard on that, so that those 3 states will not exclusively sell themselves to Russia and end up giving more problems that we can handle in West Africa. So we need to take those three strategic approaches, making sure that we try to curtail as much as possible, that is containment, the spread of Russia in West Africa, and at the same time, trying to win back those rogue states into the fold of ECOWAS through the use of the new president of Senegal.
Thank you very much. Yes. My last comment on this. That's why 40 years ago, I looked so far ahead and was proposing a black bomb by Nigeria at a time when no African country would have seen it as a threat to it or as a counterfort to it. Now, any move that we seem to take now will be perceived by Russia as something that moved against it, by the three rogue states, as you call them, as targeting them. Whereas 40 years ago, none of the African countries would have seen us as targeting them. Now we are 40 years late, and it will create more problems for us than at that time.
I have a question to ask here, sir, and maybe actually let me deal with one more question on Senegal, and then I'd ask this other question. One of the videos circulating around the internet and some of the comments that have come out, sir, regarding Senegal include direct attacks on France, includes comments that suggest that all contracts with foreign companies, French companies particularly, will be reviewed by the incoming administration in Senegal. Is that the right foreign policy approach the incoming administration should be taking? Or should they kind of measure themselves in, make sure that they have some, they develop that local trust from their electorate before they start to tackle this massive international and foreign policy related issues? What's your take on that, sir?
Don't forget that youth voted for this gentleman. The young, whom I will regard as anti-French, voted for this young man. They had a vision. And I will not be surprised if that vision actually was provoked by the foreign policy of the three young states. I will not be surprised. And we are starting to see among young people, especially in the Francophone states. Don't forget that France left behind what was called the Colonial Pact, which we have spoken about on this platform. And the African Union ambassador in the United States, who comes from Zimbabwe, had exposed the nitty-gritty of all the things France left behind. I will so, in a way, I will even think that, well, my own attitude in whatever position I occupy is to hit the ground running. And I wouldn't want the young French, the young Senegalese to think, oh, we voted him in, he's sold out. I think that he's taken the wrong step. It's going to be difficult for France to take on 4 African countries, at the same time, especially now that France itself has problems in Europe, in Ukraine, and even there are elections coming, EU elections coming, and the polls show that Macron is on his back heels. So I would think that the young president, an incoming president of France, is doing the right thing. But then that is usually my own attitude. Hit the ground running.
I see the comment from someone here called Alabi Williams saying that the video attributed to the president-elect had been fact-checked, found to be AI generated. The views are not FYEs. Yes, that is very true. However, the sentiments expressed in the video, which clearly were not FYEs, but the sentiments expressed are still very valid and are the sentiments that are still being expressed by the president-elect and other people that are close to the president-elect. So I'm not specifically talking about the video. I'm talking about the content of the video, which is still true. The CFA France and the idea of dropping that is still being raised. That's why I bring it up. Now, there is one area, because you talked about Russia and the security state and how they've been talking to, Putin has been talking to these other 3 African states. But there's a question on my mind, sir. October 7 last year, when the attack in Israel happened, there was a lot of cry about the failings of intelligence services. Now we have this massive terrorist attack that's taking place in Russia. And yet again, we're calling to question the potency of intelligence services, even in Russia. Are the intelligence services failing us? And should we be worried about the level of trust that we are putting in intelligence services, not just in the West, but even in other countries in Africa?
Well, the intelligence services are human. We knew what happened when those planes crashed into the United States. And there are so many other instances where the intelligence services have failed us. However, including by the way, the escape from the NSA custody of the Bitcoin criminal who was caught in Nigeria. And it's rather interesting that the gentleman in the United States who also was put on trial over this the Bitcoin or the
cryptocurrency.
The what?
Cryptocurrency.
Cryptocurrency has just been given 25 years by the judge. But in Nigeria, we allow his brother to escape. From custody. So, but there's somebody who has said that we only know of the failures of the intelligence agency. We don't know about their successes. But I would like to say that in the case of Nigeria, their failure seems to have outstripped their successes. But the important thing to know is that they are human beings. They make mistakes, and I would think that in the case of the Russian one, because of the war involved in Ukraine, they've probably diverted a lot of assets to the Ukraine war front, thereby leaving other areas exposed. Look at also Israel. And each time that you have at the end of each failure, you have an examination. It will be looking backwards and say, "Oh boy, we missed it. This is where we missed it." So we just have to know that there will be failures. As long as we are not using AI to pilot or to guide or inform, our intelligence area.
I don't know if there's anyone from the military on here who may want to comment on this particular point. Is our intelligence services or capabilities getting better, or are they drop? I can see a hand raised. Please go ahead and unmute yourself. Latif A. Bakari, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to Prof on the Nigerian Academy of International Affairs. Of course.
You identify yourself before speaking. Tell us what kind of military you are, which branch and what.
No. Wait a minute, gentlemen. Wait a minute. I know. Security men don't talk. So those who are actually in that field, some of whom I know, will not talk. But let us give Alhaji Bakari an opportunity.
I don't know what branch. I don't know whether it's military or what. That's what I'm asking.
No, well,
excuse me, sir. Yourself. That's what I'm saying.
Chief Bakari is my name. I'm a Nigerian.
Are you a major? Are you a general or what in the military?
I am none of those, but...
Oh, he was asking for a military person to talk.
Well, okay. Can I just...
Pick it up, sir. Go ahead, sir.
It's okay. No, please. It's okay.
Go ahead, sir.
What I want to say is, and I've written something down there, that interactions with military and with the intelligence services do suggest or do reveal that I know, and I'm sure Prof knows what I'm talking about, that our intelligence services are not as poor as is being portrayed. What happens is, like the DMI, the DIA, the NIA, when they write reports, they can't execute any of these things. But they do write reports, and I can say categorically that somebody was online yesterday. I mean, it was, I listened to an interview on channels about one Colonel Akin or something like that, and because that mission that he was talking about, I was tangentially involved in it, and I knew that the military or the intelligence services had proper records and proper analysis. But of course, it's not the DSS, it's not the DMI, it's not the NIA. They are not the ones that will go to the field. And I know that when, in fact, the crisis of Boko Haram started immediately after Yaradua, there were accurate intelligence services reports, and that I know that I'm privy to, that pinpointed exactly what was going on. Ditto the creeks in Niger Delta. Unfortunately, Yaradua, there was a major mission that was carried out that I knew in order to route this Sambisa forest that became a problem, to get rid of the Boko Haram people in Sambisa and all the militants in Niger Delta. Then Yaradua fell ill. Then Jonathan took over. Then Jonathan abandoned the northeast. And then the Boko Haram people regrouped from Chad and took over the almost 3,000 square kilos in Sambisa forest. Of course, in the Niger Delta, the amnesty program as programmed by Yaradua was continued by Jonathan, and then we had a bit of peace there. But, it could also be discouraging when we have this blanket lack of recognition of the intelligence services, because they are human beings. These guys also put themselves out to do certain things. But when they write their reports, when they write, when they feed their superiors certain information, and the superiors either for political will or whatever, they fail to act. That is a problem. So, like I said, I'm not in the military, but I'm tangentially related to them, and related to them very well, very well. Whatever I say, please take it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Chief Bakari. Much appreciated. And you actually touched on what I was going to end with. The question I was going to end with is the fact that the United States has claimed that they informed Russia about this attack and that Russia failed to act on the intelligence. What do you feel about that, sir? The fact that despite the tensions between the United States and Russia, that the United States even went ahead to inform Russia. Obviously, we're taking it at face value that the United States actually did that. But I have no reason to disbelieve the comments from the United States. What do you think to that, sir?
The most dangerous thing you could do is to get involved in intelligence squabbles. The Russians may feel that the Americans are setting them up, that what the Americans are saying is not true. And there is no way that the Russians will be able to disentangle what the Americans are trying to do. It is a murky business, a very murky business indeed. And I'm so happy that I never went into that area at all. And I feel sorry for the people who go into the intelligence field, because you cannot deconstruct what the opponent is trying to do to you. And that's why I said earlier on that we hear of the failures, we don't hear of the successes. If they fail, the whole country comes crashing down on their heads. If they succeed, they don't talk, because in talking you may you may expose your assets, and that becomes another issue. I served on what we call the Boko Haram Commission, set up by President Jonathan. And believe me, you will never hear from my mouth the things that we discovered. Obviously, the intelligence agents trusted us enough to expose certain things to us. But I know deep in my heart that they didn't tell us everything. And they couldn't have told us everything. In fact, if they told us everything, then they are lousy agents. But they told us enough, and they exposed enough to us. But what we also didn't know was who was playing what game. Who was playing what game? Those who were telling us, oh, it is this, were they trying to use us to settle scores? And those who were denying, and you yourself then end up putting 2 and 2 together, and as Alhaji Bakari said, we wrote our report. We sent that report to President Jonathan. But then we don't know what happened to that report. Obviously, there are filters by the time the report got to President Jonathan. The report itself was mutilated in the way in which it was then executed. And some of the mutilation is starting to come out now, but I only know this because I served on the committee. If I didn't serve on the committee, I wouldn't know. So it's always better to wish our intelligence people well, to wish them well. They put their lives on the line. It's not just soldiers in uniform who get killed in the process of carrying out their duties. Some of them get killed in carrying out their functions. So it's just better that our lives are in their hands, okay? Our lives are in their hands. And if you want to know the dangers they go through. There are books written by retired CIA chaps or retired MI5 chaps that have been declassified, and you read through and you see what they go through and the danger that they're exposed to.
Thank you very much, sir. We've run out of time now, but maybe next week I'd want to ask your views about the some have said rather strange departure from the United States in terms of the vote at the UN Security Council against Israel, which was unexpected, and how Israel responded to that by canceling a trip to the United States for further conversations. But I would start next week with that point. And any other developments that have taken place between now and then, I'd take those together and I would start with that next week, just because we've run out of time today. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you to Alhaji Bakari for your contribution. I can see a comment here that says interaction with the intelligence service seemed to suggest that in Nigeria, a lack of political will is often responsible for the perceived intelligence services failure. Thank you for that comment. And I think I'll pick the other comment there. So thank you, everyone. We'll be back next week with more points to discuss. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. Have a nice evening, sir. Good night, sir.
Good night.